It's been about a decade since I've been here, so I'm really happy to see so many familiar faces. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of changes in those 10 years of people that are missing as well. So this talk is actually more about an application of some graph theory, and I hope you like it. So it's related to my gift exchange, which is a puzzle. As far as I know, it is more or less unsolved. So if you have any insights to that, please email me. And I've made some artistic renderings using the different color gamuts of the phase changes from the graph stuff that I've done that I'm going to show you today. Okay, so where did this stuff come from? Basically back in G4G14, which was a while ago, I played a game of Go with Berlekamp. The Go board is actually out there in the lobby, and I encourage you guys to go out there and check it out and come talk to me about that whole story, which is just an excellent Berlekamp story. And at G4G10, we talked about this idea of influence, which is absolute garbage because nobody knows what influence is, and it's kind of a vague notion altogether. Turns out, though, that the idea of propagating through space is through a square grid space and trying to make it look more amorphous or like even just Euclidean is kind of a difficult problem. And this led to a publication recently, and it has applications in things like processing medical images. I'd also like to thank Les Shader and his family for bringing me here in the first place. Les is no longer with us, and if you have any good Les stories to share, please find me after the presentation. I got goofy titles for all the slides, so enjoy those as we go through. But if you just propagate through square grids, what you're going to end up with is what's called a Manhattan distance. It's basically going to make diamond shapes. And any of you that are Dungeons and Dragons fans like myself have had this kind of conundrum where you wish things were more circular as you move through the space, but no matter, you can still play the game. But I got very frustrated with this, so I decided there's time for a new solution. Now, I found that you can actually chamfer or make and shore up by just adding extra extensions to this, the top row here. And you get more circular patterns, which is great. But I thought, well, you're jumping over everything, so that's not really so great. What if I could make a little network inside the pixel and or square and make it so that it behaves Euclidean-like? Turns out this is kind of a tough problem because not all networks are going to behave very nicely for this. And so this was kind of an unexplored area. So you ask, Art, why the heck would you even do that? Well, there's a good reason. It turns out that when you create these kind of unique structures, and if you want to know more, come find me. This is just the elevator pitch. But it creates 4 different modes for measuring distance. So you can actually start or stop at either, start and stop at 1, start or stop at 2, etc. as you propagate through the network space. So, you can kind of see how the pixels are connected here. And as it turns out, they create differences between each other. And you say, okay, great, now you've made it even more complicated. They don't agree with each other, and you've had to do it 4 times to measure distance and do Dijkstra's algorithm like 4 times. What are you trying to do here? Well, they actually dephase with one another if you apply a modulation to those distances. And when you add those different modulations together, as you can see down in D, they actually kind of filter out the high frequency modulation. And so when you take the absolute value of these things, you end up with something that kind of looks like the original image, run it through all the phases, and you get something that looks remarkably like it. And you say, well, did it just reconstruct the image? No, actually, it created a shadow kind of version. So I call this the Umbral Distance Transform. Totally made it up. I have no idea. There's other Umbral transforms that exist in literature, but not like this. And again, so going back to where this came from and why Berlekamp is here, we were talking about Go influence models together. And so how do you do this? And what happens with this? Well, now I have shadows all over the place in image spaces. So that's pretty neat. And you can do some cool applications with this. So in the dark regions here, I actually create some structure from the minimal distance spanning tree, for those of you that are familiar with some of the graph theory aspects of that. And it shades relative to a source point of origin. So going back here, you have the red are the source points of origin, and you can kind of see it almost behaves like light. So the space actually creates the phase differential for you. As you propagate through the space, the dark areas are harder to get through. So that's how that works out. for the gift exchange, I know this isn't going to be to everyone's taste, but I find it fascinating that these things could, these graphs could actually propagate through space, and by using different color gamuts for the different phases that I ended up with, I just created some artistic renderings of some pictures of some of the people that I really care about and really like and really miss. So I don't know, I have about a minute. I don't know how to deal with life and death problems very well in the real world. I can do it in a Go board. Some of you that play Go will get that joke. You know, back at G4G9, I met somebody really incredible, and he really changed my life. And if you want to hear more about that story, I have like a 2.5-page, 3-page paper on the infinitely improbable things that happened that led to my son, Elwin Douglas Terlep. So he was born just this year, actually. So yeah, and he's named after Elwin. So thank you all very much for your time. I think that's it for me.